Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're looking for the real story, the shortcut to understanding the mind and method behind one of the, most consequential empires of our time, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Today, we are not talking about the latest tweet or a product launch. We are digging deep into the foundational story. We're looking at those often brutal, formative years that really set the blueprint for SpaceX, for Tesla, and for Solar City.
That's exactly right. Our mission here is to cut through all the noise and the mythology.
So much mythology.
Right. We need to get to the source code, of that relentless ambition we see today. We're tracing it back through his childhood, his first big failures, and some really surprising financial bets.
Okay, so we're looking for that core DNA, the thing that let all of these completely different companies succeed, basically at the same time, around that 2012 tipping point.
Yeah, that's the moment when he just reshaped 3 global industries at once.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when you really get into the biographies, the story doesn't start in some Palo Alto garage. It starts somewhere much, much harsher.
Pretoria, South Africa.
Yeah.
And that sense of being an outsider there was, it was a defining pressure cooker for him.
The sources say he had this reserved personality, these, quote, geeky inclinations. He just didn't fit in with a culture that rewarded, aggression and conformity.
And that feeling created this incredibly focused, this visceral desire to escape. For him, America wasn't just a place to get rich. It was the land of opportunity. It was a way out.
An absolute goal.
A non-negotiable goal. But what's crucial, and what people often miss, is that this taste for massive risk and adventure, it wasn't just his. It was kind of baked into his family history.
You're talking about the Flying Haldemans.
I am. It's a critical piece of the puzzle. We're talking about his great-grandparents, Joshua and Wynne Haldeman. Joshua was this incredible character, a chiropractor, a bronco rider, and just an extreme adventurer.
And when you say adventure, you mean on a scale that is almost impossible to imagine today? The sources talk about them strapping their kids into a single-engine plane.
The Belunker Cruiser, yeah.
And flying 30,000 miles to Australia and back.
Just think about that for a second. The danger, the sheer complexity of navigating the globe in a tiny prop plane decades before GPS.
It's insane.
And it wasn't just flying. They go on these month-long expeditions deep into the Kalahari Desert. I mean, there are these stories about a lion circling their campfire one night.
Oh.
Or Joshua having to fix a broken truck, totally stranded for 3 days. No cell phones, no communication. Just figure it out or you're done.
And that's the psychological connection, right? That multi-generational mindset of self-reliance, of being comfortable with extreme risk, of solving life or death problems yourself.
Yeah.
That's the DNA that eventually leads to building rockets.
Absolutely. That whole if it breaks, I fix it mentality. But the tech side of it, that started when he was about 10 in Johannesburg when he first saw a computer.
Right, in a mall. He was just captivated. He gets a manual, teaches himself basic programming in 3 straight days.
And then, in this perfect little moment, his father just dismisses it. Says computers are just for games.
A total rejection.
And that just solidified his own conviction. It's like the world, even his own family, saw limits where he was already seeing this infinite potential.
So that conviction drives them to Canada in 1989. And while he's at Queen's University, he and his brother Kimball come up with this, unbelievably audacious strategy for a college kid.
Cold calling top executives.
Not just emailing. Yeah. Actively calling people like Peter Nicholson at the Bank of Nova Scotia.
And they weren't asking for a job or for money. They were asking for lunch, for insight. They were basically building their own private masterclass in how high finance and big ideas actually work.
That kind of proactive networking, it leads right into his first company. He gets to California, and in 1995, he co-founds Zip2.
Zip2 was, conceptually brilliant for its time. It was sort of a primitive Google Maps mixed with Yelp.
Right. It helped newspapers get their city guides and business listings online. It proved the internet could actually drive real-world commerce.
And it was a fast success. Compaq buys Zip2 in 1999 for $307 million. He personally makes $22 million.
Life-changing money. His first big win in the Silicon Valley game.
And this is where you see the first real sign of how different he was. Most .com founders would have banked that cash, bought a boat, maybe started a little venture fund.
But he doesn't.
Not at all. He immediately pivots, founds X.com, which would eventually become PayPal.
And the risk he took here is just staggering.
It is. The sources highlight that he poured almost all of that about $12 million after taxes directly into X.com, an online bank.
So wait, he didn't stash any of it away?
Nope. He treated his entire net worth like it was just another round of venture capital for his own idea. This was not normal behavior. Not at all.
So why was that so shocking? I mean, founders reinvest all the time. Was it just a smart financial move, or was it something else?
I think it was the sheer scale of the bet and what he was betting on. He was trying to take on the entire banking system digitally when most people were still terrified to use a credit card online. It wasn't just a small improvement, it was a full-on disruption. And it signals that his motivation was never just about getting rich. It was about building these world-changing systems, even if it meant risking absolute financial ruin.
Going all in. That became his signature move.
It did. But even with that commitment, he still ran into the classic Silicon Valley boardroom drama. He was actually pushed out as CEO of X.com PayPal in a coup.
Brutal.
A really brutal defining moment for him. He still got fantastically rich when eBay bought the company in 2002, made over $100 million. But the money was almost secondary. The big lesson was, from that point on, he was determined to never, ever lose control of his companies again.
And this all happens during a huge slump in tech. After the dot-com bust, there was this massive disillusionment. The feeling was, the internet had kind of let us down.
Exactly. You get Peter Thiel's famous line, "We wanted flying cars, instead we got 140 characters." The smartest people were just chasing easy money-making apps and ads.
It's safer.
Much safer than building, as the sources put it, big, fantastic machines.
And that vacuum of ambition was the perfect setup for his next move. He takes his fortune, moves to LA, and starts tackling the things everyone else thought were just too hard: space and sustainable energy.
And his first idea for space, interestingly, wasn't about building rockets. It was basically a PR stunt.
The Life to Mars Foundation.
Yeah, the whole idea was just to get people excited about Mars again. The plan was to send a little capsule with some mice to Mars, maybe a robotic greenhouse called Mars Oasis.
Just to prove it could be done.
Just to get people talking. But this leads to the real turning point. He realizes buying a rocket launch is absurdly expensive. So he goes to Russia in 2001 to try and buy some decommissioned Soviet rockets.
Then they basically laugh him out of the room.
Twice. He's disappointed. He's insulted by the prices they're quoting. But on the long flight back from Moscow, he turns to his colleagues and shows them a spreadsheet he'd been working on.
A spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet detailing the cost of the raw materials to build, assemble, and launch a rocket himself. The math showed he could do it for about 2% of what the Russians wanted, and that's the moment. He switches from being a customer to a designer and manufacturer.
Which gives birth to SpaceX in 2002. And this was just a complete rejection of the old aerospace model.
Oh, completely. Traditional aerospace was all about building these bespoke Ferraris max performance, super high cost, usually for the government. SpaceX's goal was to build the Honda Accord of rockets.
Low cost, high volume, reusable.
Yeah.
And the key was vertical integration. Right. Making everything themselves.
Everything. He insisted on it. Instead of having hundreds of suppliers who all add their own profit margin, they bought raw metal, ran their own machines, wrote their own software. It gave them total control over cost and let them iterate incredibly fast.
And the numbers were they were shocking. The Falcon 1 was priced at $6.9 million when competitors were charging $30 million or more for a similar payload.
It was a signal that threatened to upend the entire industry. And at the exact same time, he's getting Tesla motors off the ground.
2003. And here, the big insight wasn't just a design thing. It was a core technology idea from an engineer named J.B. Straubel.
Right. It was about using those little consumer-grade 18650 lithium-ion batteries.
The same ones you'd find in a laptop.
Exactly. Straubel did the math. A single cell doesn't hold much energy, but if you could string together thousands of them, like 7,000 or eventually 10,000 cells, the energy density was transformative.
Suddenly you could get a range approaching 1,000 miles.
Which was unheard of, and that was the key insight. Musk saw it immediately. This was how you changed the electric car from being this, boring, slow golf cart thing
into something aspirational.
Into a screaming, fast, long-range machine that could actually compete with gasoline cars. He was using cheap, mass-produced computer parts, the bits, to unlock the performance of a physical machine, the atoms.
So for a decade, it's just this soul-crushing effort. People said he was eating glass and staring into the abyss. Everyone predicted failure. And then 2012 happens.
And that's the year the world had to stop and take notice. I mean, it was an unbelievable industrial achievement. In 1 year, SpaceX flies the Dragon capsule to the International Space Station and brings it back.
Which had never been done by a private company.
Never. At the same time, Tesla delivers the Model S, which just took the auto industry's breath away. And Solar City, where he's chairman, is rocketing towards its IPO.
He delivered the biggest advances in space, cars, and energy in a single year. So, let's talk about the synthesis. How does one person manage three impossibly complex companies? What's the connection?
The sources all point to what they call a unifying field theory. The companies aren't just connected by technology, they're driven by one massive overriding goal, the Mars agenda.
Okay, explain that.
He's not primarily chasing market share or profit. The core driver is ensuring human survival by protecting us from self-imposed or accidental annihilation.
So space colonization and sustainable energy, they're existential goals.
Exactly. That massive, almost impossible ambition is what justifies the brutal effort. You need rockets for Mars, and you need sustainable energy for Earth, and for a future Mars colony.
And that huge goal leads to a unique and often really difficult management style. Employees saw two completely different sides of him.
On one hand, you have the hardline approach, just zero tolerance for the word impossible. He's known for blunt, sometimes withering criticism. He lives by this idea that the longer you wait to fire someone, the longer it has been since you should have fired them.
But then how do you explain the fierce loyalty? I mean, people worked for him for decades under that pressure.
Because they see him holding himself to that same impossible standard, probably even higher. He's the guy who shows up on the factory floor in expensive shoes and immediately gets them covered in epoxy, working alongside the engineers. He'll pay for an employee's LASIK surgery.
So they know he's in the trenches with them.
They know he's relentless. The Terminator comparison comes up a lot. But that he's committed to the mission above all else. His own comfort, his own sleep. None of it matters as much as the goal.
And the sources suggest that relentless drive is connected to a need to keep moving forward, to avoid darker emotional places. They talk about his childhood and, tragically, the death of his infant son, Nevada.
Yeah, after that loss, he made it very clear he didn't want to talk about it publicly. He saw open grief as emotionally manipulative. His ex-wife suggested it was a defense mechanism, a way to channel that emotional energy directly into the work to avoid the pain by just focusing on the future.
So if you step back and look at the identity that emerges from this period, what do you see? He's not really a software guy. He's an industrialist, an inventor. He's more like Thomas Edison than Steve Jobs.
I think so. He succeeded in merging atoms and bits, software, electronics, and heavy machinery at a time when almost everyone else was just chasing apps. And if you look at what he's doing now, the gigafactories, Hyperloop, the space-based internet, it all stems from that foundational quest he started back in the early 2000s. The goal is never a small improvement. It's always a step function change.
It's an undeniable story of just massive ambition meeting profound execution. We've seen that the drive is so absolute that he's willing to risk everything. He told a friend, "I will spend my last dollar on these companies."
He's literally betting his existence on this mission, and he even has this ultimate kind of poetic goal. He says he wants to die on Mars, just not on impact.
Which brings us to a final question for you, the listener. When you look at the scale of his success and the personal cost of his relentlessness, it makes you wonder. When you're aiming for change that could genuinely impact humanity's survival, like colonizing another planet or solving climate change, does that level of all-or-nothing ambition, that intense personal risk-taking, become not just helpful, but maybe necessary no matter the cost to the people around you? We'll leave you with that. Thanks for joining us for the Deep Dive.